let's talk about the jury duty. You must have heard every excuse imaginable why someone cannot be the juror in a case. What are some of those excuses that people come up with?
Yeah, sometimes people say, well, he's guilty no matter what. Okay, well, from my experience, I mean, people come up with some excuses, but it's more of just, you could tell that they just don't, like, they have to work. You know, a lot of it is just, well, I just don't want to, and I don't believe in guns, or, you know, just try to, like, you know, I don't believe in domestic violence. I'm like, well, I don't think anybody believes in domestic violence. So, you know, that's not the point. Like,
they're trying to show bias from the get-go.
Yeah, they're trying to show bias in a way, right? Like, well, I don't like gangs, you know, things to that effect. And I have to explain, well, I don't think anybody likes gangs, you know, or I don't think anybody's support of domestic violence. That's not the issue. It's whether you could listen to the evidence and apply the law and decide the case with, you know, your 11 fellow jurors. So it becomes a lot of explanation. But I think there's people who, and it seems, I guess, maybe a little better in my mind. And I'm hoping it's because of my kind of opening statements to jurors that they feel a little better about serving as jurors. Because one of the things I say is, you know, next to military service, serving as a juror is one of the most important aspects of being a citizen of this country, because it is a jury trial is one of the unique things about the U.S. Justice system, right? So you need people to serve as jurors, and you need people to take their time and do that public service as a citizen. So I try to, you know, kind of talk about that in my opening remarks, so that people kind of take it seriously and don't think that it's, you know, it's not, you know, it doesn't mean anything if I get off of jury duty, or because I try to impress that it does mean a lot that people try to, you know, take the time and be selected as jurors. But of course, you're going to have, you know, somebody that has work requirements that, you know, it really is going to be a big financial hardship. You know, I'll take that into consideration, obviously. I mean, you know, school or work is usually not an excuse, but I mean, if somebody's being genuine and explaining, you know, why they can't serve for one reason or another, whether it's a financial hardship. I mean, there's caretakers, right? They have to take care of, you know, somebody that's disabled or an elderly parent, or, you know, 5 young children, you know. I mean, that is something that I have them share with us so that we can give those people some accommodation, especially if the parties agree to give them the accommodation. So, you know, I mean, you know, silly excuses, yes, I usually don't tolerate them. But I obviously, you know, I'd like people to be comfortable enough to share what the hardship is, and then I could explain to them, well, you know, that's something that I feel or I understand, but, you know, jury service is very important. So if you get selected, you need to serve.
So what would you say to someone who's listening to this podcast and just got their jury summons in the mail?
Show up.
And they're trying to conceive the master plan of how they're not going to, be selected.
Right. Well, once again, I would say don't do it. Don't do that, right? When you get a jury service summons, go to your jury service summons. Obviously, if there's, you know, I think it's if you're over a certain age, you can get exempted, or, you know, whatever. There's certain things that you could call and say, can you put my name in for next time because, you know, I'm out of town, right? Or something. I mean, it's all reasonable excuses, but don't try to automatically get a jury summons. Like, how do I get out of this? Like, no, your focus should be, oh, this is great. How can I serve as a juror, right? That's what I try to impart on people. It doesn't work too much.
Doesn't work too often. Do lawyers make good jurors, or are they getting dismissed quite quickly?
Generally speaking, I would say, I think a lot of attorneys do not get selected. I think because the parties, one side or the other, will strike them for one reason or another. But I've had attorneys serve. You know, they serve. I don't think there's any difference about how they serve. I know I've heard stories of judges being selected as a juror, but then of course the other jurors will, right, go to that judge. Like, what do you think, right? So I mean, everybody can serve. Just because you're a judge or an attorney doesn't mean you shouldn't serve or you can't serve. But of course, that's up to the parties, right? During jury selection, I think some attorneys vow to never have an attorney on a jury panel, so they just excuse an attorney, which is fine, But I mean, everybody's can serve, so it's just a matter of the attorneys and how do you, kind of approach jury selection, who you want to serve. I love doing jury trials. Everybody in the criminal division will tell you, I love doing juries as a prosecutor. I mean, there's probably one year where I would do 20 plus juries. I do back-to-back-to-back murder trials. I just love the concept and the being able to present to 12 people the evidence and then argue it for your side and then just wait to see if 12 people could come to like a unanimous decision. I just find that fascinating, and I love that aspect about in the United States about jury trials. And I always loved them as an attorney. I love them as a judge. I love doing juries. And a lot of attorneys that appear in front of me are like, "Oh my God, you love doing juries." I said, "Yes, I do. I love doing juries," and it engages the public, right? I think that's the other aspect of it. It engages people to come in, just regular people, and sit on a jury. And one of the things that jurors tell me oftentimes is, I really enjoyed this experience. I really learned a lot. I see what happens, and I love that about, people sitting and kind of seeing, okay, and especially criminal juries, right? Because there's so much about crime out there, and everybody has an opinion about this or that and the other with respect to, the criminal law aspect of things. And it's just great that jurors show up and do their service and do their job, whatever the verdict is. And I mean, to me, it doesn't matter what the verdict is. But to say that, Judge, we really appreciated the what we learned and, doing the service. So I love that aspect. And I think it teaches people and opens a window for people that usually are not involved in, any sort of legal criminal law or civil law or a courtroom for that matter.
Have you ever had a juror that initially tried to get off from serving and then ultimately express the gratitude?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying a lot. Because when they first come in, nobody wants to get picked, right? Mm-hmm. But then they go through the process. They go through a trial. And I mean, for one thing, criminal trials are, and the same thing in a lot of civil trials are very interesting. These are interesting issues, interesting set of facts. And once they go through the whole process, they're like, oh, just like I said, they're like, this was great. I had a great experience. I'm glad I served. So I see that a lot. And I love that happens, because I think it kind of gives people an idea about what happens in courtrooms, in this day and age of everybody having an opinion about a judge or one thing or another, where they actually experience it and they get it, what happens.